So I found out that they actually don't do this in Poland and in Polish schools, and this was so shocking to me because this is such a big thing in the US. Dzień dobry, cześć, hello. Today, guys, I'm going to be talking about the differences between school USA versus Polska. Now, today I'm just going to be talking about the major differences that I noticed between Poland and USA when it comes to schools, because I don't really want to talk about the specifics, as I feel like it's just mostly unimportant, and if you guys want, you can leave them in the comment section down below, but I'm really just going to be going into the major differences that I noticed and that I felt like would be worth talking about and listening to. So anyways, guys, let's just get started between the differences of school USA versus Poland. First off, schools don't differentiate between elementary school and middle school like they do in the US. Instead, elementary school is just grades 1 through 8 versus in the US, it is elementary school 1 through 5, middle school 6 through 8, and then high school after. And of course, there is high school and technical schools in both countries. And the class length in Poland is usually around 45 minutes, whereas in the US, this is usually an hour. It honestly, it actually depends. It can be an hour to 50 minutes to sometimes even an hour and a half. Now, with transportation on how kids get to school, usually this is done through the city bus in Poland. Normally, kids will just take like the regular bus with everyone else, and that's how they normally get to school, or their parents will drop them off, or sometimes schools will have a dedicated bus to pick up schools or to pick up kids. And this is usually rare as well, as it's just not really a popular thing, as most of the time kids can just get on the regular city bus. This is usually just for smaller villages and places where, you know, buses aren't really going that often and where kids need to be picked up. And now compare this to the US, we have the traditional yellow school bus. And if anyone wonders what the schools look like on the outside and inside in the US, I was in a classroom with my girlfriend, and a student asked me if classes actually look like they do in the movies that they see. So the answer is yes, they do. Now in Poland, there's usually a lunch break of around 20 minutes, and as far as I know, most schools don't have like a dedicated cafeteria or a place where they're serving food. I'm pretty sure they have to go to like some local area that they call the canteen, I'm pretty sure. Now in the US, this is quite different because we don't have any other breaks. Like in Poland, they have the 20-minute lunch break, and then they have usually around a 5 to 10 minute break, sometimes in between classes as well. Now in the US, this is different because typically there's no breaks at all throughout the day, and instead it's just like a 25 to 30 minute lunch period. And in the US, they have cafeterias where they are selling food, and it's usually like right in the middle of the school. And the school that I grew up going to, we had a cop in the cafeteria, always in there, along with, if you know it wasn't lunchtime, the cop would be like in his office in the school. The reason why the cop was in the cafeteria is because there was always fights, you know, fist fights like all the time, you know, because there are extremely strict laws with teachers interrupting fights in the school. Instead, the teacher can basically just sit there and yell at them and say, you know, get off, don't, you know, stop fighting, all of that. Most of the time, honestly, they just walk away because they can't do anything at all legally. If they were to intervene at all, they would be like severely punished most of the time. And the only one that's allowed to like put their hands on a kid would be a police officer if there was like a fight going on. And in my school, the police officer was armed just in case if, you know, I don't know, a kid had a knife, or, you know, God forbid, a school shooting or something like that. All right, so the next point is the Matura exam, and this is very, very big and popular, and it's a big event in someone's life in Poland. Okay, so basically at the end of high school, every single student will have to take the Matura exam to get a high school certificate. Compulsory exams are the ones with basic level, Polish, maths, and language. Students can pick, can be English, French, Spanish, Russian, or whatever they really want. Usually the language that students now pick is English, and also one exam on advanced level. This is also subject of your choice. You must pass the basic level tests, and if you fail, you must redo it until you pass and get a certificate. Matura is written and oral, and and I'm pretty sure the written is the only part that must be passed. And you must pass your Matura exam to then go to a university. And some people also ask me, what's the difference between a university and a college? Colleges are often smaller institutions that emphasize undergraduate education in a broad range of academic areas. Universities are typically larger institutions that offer a variety of both undergraduate and graduate degree programs. Many universities are committed to producing research. I would honestly just tell you that colleges and universities are really just the same thing. So the equivalent of the Matura in the US is the SAT exam. Now, I wrote this down, so let me just read this here. The SAT is a multiple choice pencil and paper test created and administered by the College Board. The purpose of the SAT is to measure a high school student's readiness for college and provides colleges with one common data point that can be used to compare all applicants. So it's a multiple choice test that you have to take after high school, and it takes hours to do. You typically will do this over the course of, I think, 2 to like 4 days, I'm pretty sure. And you're graded on, like math, English, science, all of that stuff. And I think it's a multiple choice of A, B, C, D, E, I'm pretty sure. And I think with some of the math points, you actually had to input a number. You actually have to write like a physical number. I also found this pretty interesting is that along with the normal subjects, like Polish, math, and, sciences and all of that in Poland, they also have an option to have like religious studies and also ethics studies. Ethics studies being about like what is good and what is bad, and then as well as religious studies about, I guess, Christianity and all of that stuff. Now, I also wrote this down, which is related to summer breaks, and that is breaks usually start the last week of June and last until September 1st in Poland versus the US. Kids start their summer break usually early June, and this goes until August. And in the winter in Poland, kids get around 2 weeks off versus in the US, kids get around a month off. And Poland and the US also have technical schools, just like I mentioned earlier. This is where people can train for either like something like graphic design or plumbers, or I don't know, even like firefighters. I know they have that in the US. So yeah, it's the same thing in both countries. Now, the US and Poland also has both public and private universities. Now, in the US, you are paying for both public and private. It doesn't matter. Now, if you get a scholarship for any one of those, it can be free, and you can get a scholarship for honestly a bunch of different reasons. And also, fun fact, for a public school, I paid $60,000. Now, you might ask, what is the difference between a public university in the US and a private university in the US? Well, I have the definition here, which is the defining difference between public and private institutions is how they are funded. Public schools are funded mainly by state governments, while private colleges are supported primarily by their own endowment funds and student tuition fees. And also, public colleges receive donations. So when I graduated from my university, I received messages in the mail all the time, basically every couple of months, asking for donations to the school. This was after I paid $60,000 for a 4-year degree. So just wrap your head around that. I paid $60,000 to go to a public school, which says they make money from the government and also their donations. Yet I paid $60,000 to go there, just one person. And to be honest, it is not worth $60,000 to go to school for 4 years. Not worth it at all. Because a lot of people will think, well, oh my God, you have a US degree, you can get any job, all of that. Really, that's actually not the case at all, and it's quite sad, because I even saw people with degrees working at jobs that don't require them at all. And that's, to be honest, really the sad part, is a lot of people are wasting their time in 4 years to really just go to and party and spend a lot of their money to then end up as a young adult with negative net worth. And that's truly sad, honestly. Now, compare this to Poland. Public university is free, and then, private you do have to pay for, but, obviously it's not, the same price as it is in the US. It's much lower. And so something to think about is that, college in Poland is free. So a lot of kids can go to college, and because of that, most jobs will simply require a degree from a university. Most most jobs require that. Now, because college is free, the job market is very competitive, and because of that, you know, the standard is raised to most people getting a minimum of a 4-year degree at a university. And a lot of people I know have master degrees and will have, you know, like normal jobs, whereas if you compare that to the US, you know, a lot of people can get actually decent jobs without going to university at all. Like, you can actually have a nice career without going to a university. So the last point is fraternities and sororities. So these don't exist at all in Poland. So let me just talk quickly about this. So sororities and fraternities. Fraternities is all male groups, and this is also in universities. So fraternities are all male groups, sororities are all female groups. Now, in these different sororities and fraternities, they have different like organizations and stuff like that. You know, I know like one of the most popular fraternities is Kappa Sigma. So fraternities and sororities are known as like Greek life. So the symbols of the fraternities and sororities are Greek symbols, and they're really just, you know, there's a lot of party ones, and there's some like normal like academic ones, but mostly it's like a partying organization. And honestly, I think the whole idea of fraternities are quite odd. All of the major ones you do have to pay. So my roommate was in a really popular one, and he had to pay something like $300 a month or something like that for his fraternity. And the way I saw it was that he was paying to have friends and to have a party membership. And yeah, that's really all they did, was party and drink and all of that. So a lot of the major fraternities have been involved with really bad things like assault and, you know, different things all around that. And yeah, like I said, it's just mostly they're really involved in just degenerate behavior and drinking and stuff like that. And really all it is like a party house and a party organization. And it's the same thing on the girl side, the sorority as well. So anyways, guys, that was school USA versus Poland. And if you learned anything, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you maybe have a question, leave them in the comment section down below. Or, you know, if you want to educate me on something, leave it in the comment section down below. I'm eager to hear from you. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Dziękuję I do widzenia.